People have lots of ideas about what mummies are, and some are more fantasy than reality. But this book has all the facts wrapped up. It's called Mummies Made in Egypt.
Remember when PBS convinced millions of kids that books were cooler than cartoons? From 1983 to 2009, Reading Rainbow made literacy look like an adventure instead of a punishment. No small feat in an era when a lot of kids' programming assumed the only way to teach anything was to shout it, sing it, or underline it in neon. LeVar Burton read stories and showed kids that books could take you anywhere, long before screens convinced all of us that anywhere mostly meant scrolling way past our bedtime. Today, we're counting down 15 weird and wonderful facts about the show that made reading feel revolutionary because convincing kids to put down the Atari and pick up a book actually was. Now, before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe, and stick around for fact number 1 to find out who everyone thought sang the show's theme song this whole time. Now, let's get into the countdown with number 15. The show saved kids from the summer slide. In 1983, PBS was tackling something called the summer reading slide. That magical time when kids tended to lose reading skills over summer vacation because when the pool is calling, chapter books don't stand a chance. Buffalo and Nebraska public television stations had a radical idea. If kids were going to stare at screens all summer anyway, and this was decades before tablets turned every restaurant into a digital daycare, why not make them accidentally literate? Enter Reading Rainbow, the show that disguised education as entertainment before edutainment became a corporate buzzword that made everything kind of worse. The formula was simple. LeVar Burton picked a book, celebrities narrated it, and then Burton took field trips connecting stories to real life.
Here's a book that's all about daydreaming.
Daydreamers. Poem by Eloise Greenfield. Pictures by Tom Felix.
One episode, you're reading about space, the next, you're touring NASA. It was like Mr. Rogers meets Bill Nye, but for kids who thought reading was punishment. The genius move was the kid reviewers giving unscripted book recommendations. No focus groups, no marketing, just genuine "this book slaps" energy from actual children. The show won 26 Emmys over 26 years, one for every season, like clockwork. Not bad for a program that convinced kids to put down the Game Boy and pick up a book. Try selling that pitch to today's algorithm-obsessed executives. We'll wait while they calculate the engagement metrics. Number 14, the catchphrase that defined a generation and the lawsuit that tried to claim it. Every episode ended the same way. LeVar Burton would smile and say, "But you don't have to take my word for it."
Books are one of the most precious things we have on Earth. But, as we say down here, you don't have to take my word for it.
Then cut to kids giving brutally honest book reviews that made reading feel like discovery instead of homework. That 7-word phrase became one of PBS's most recognizable taglines. The network plastered it on classroom posters, merchandise, and promotional materials, turning Burton's gentle encouragement into a cultural touchstone that rivaled Just Do It, but with significantly more sincerity and zero sweatshop controversies. For an entire generation, those words meant something bigger than a TV sign-off.
Here are some other books about boats and mysteries that you might enjoy. But you don't have to take my word for it.
They meant your opinion mattered. Your reading choices were yours. Nobody was forcing you to like what adults told you to like, a surprisingly radical message for children's programming. But the enduring power of those words was never in dispute. It was the gateway to a world where kids learned to trust their own voices. In 2017, something deliciously ironic happened. The people who owned Reading Rainbow decided LeVar Burton couldn't say their own catchphrase anymore. WNED, the Buffalo PBS station holding the show's rights, sued Burton and RR Kids over his use of "but you don't have to take my word for it."
Here are some others that you might enjoy, but you don't have to take my word for it.
On his LeVar Burton Reads podcast. Their concern was trademark infringement and audience confusion. For a generation that grew up with those words as a promise of empowerment, watching them become contested intellectual property felt like finding out Santa has lawyers. The lawsuit dragged through 2017 and 2018 before settling in 2019. Burton got his phrase back, everyone signed NDAs, and the whole mess quietly disappeared like so many uncomfortable corporate moments. A show built on encouraging kids to form their own opinions ended up in court arguing over who owned 7 words about independent thinking. Sometimes irony isn't just poetic, it's legally binding. Number 13, Reading Rainbow was the first PBS Kids show in stereo. In 1984, Reading Rainbow became the first PBS Kids show to broadcast in stereo, which meant LeVar Burton's voice could actually move across your speakers instead of being trapped in mono like every other show. PBS engineers literally ripped up studio floors to install the new sound system, treating educational television like it deserved concert hall acoustics. The result was Burton's narration floated around living rooms, while that Buchla synthesizer theme song created an almost 3D experience.
You can't tell a book by its cover. And you can't tell everything about a person just by what's on the surface. I mean, who would think that Miss Nelson could turn into Viola Swamp whenever she wanted to keep her second grade class out of mischief?
Assuming your family had a stereo TV, which most didn't. For kids lucky enough to hear it in stereo, however, the effect was genuinely magical. Books came alive not just visually, but spatially. Like Burton was walking around your house reading stories, which sounds odd out of context, but in practice felt magical. Most children's programming treated audio like an afterthought. Reading Rainbow treated it like part of the storytelling. Today's kids get Dolby Atmos and complain about buffering, but we got stereo LeVar Burton and we considered it witchcraft, okay? Number 12, the flying book butterfly animation stayed for 16 years. That hand-painted butterfly fluttering through book pages opened every Reading Rainbow episode from 1983 to 1999. 16 years without a single update, which in television terms is basically forever. Most modern shows rebrand their graphics every season like they're launching a startup. Created by Ovation Films and designed by Bill Davis, each 10-second segment took nearly a month to render. A month! For 10 seconds of animation, using computer hardware with less processing power than your current toaster, because technology in the 80s moved at the speed of continental drift. But that painstaking work created something genuinely beautiful. Hand-painted illustrations that made books look like they could actually fly kids somewhere magical instead of just sitting there being homework. In 1999, PBS finally updated the intro with early CGI page turns, marking their big leap into digital effects.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high.
The new version looked exactly how you'd expect late 90s CGI to look, like someone discovered Photoshop filters and got very excited about what computers could almost do. But that original hand-painted butterfly is still undefeated. A month of rendering per 10 seconds bought 16 years of childhood magic, the kind of return on investment that would make modern content creators weep into their ring lights. It was a different era, when artistry mattered more than rendering speed. Number 11, a who's who of guest narrators, back when celebrity cameos actually meant something. Reading Rainbow didn't just slap celebrities into episodes for publicity, they actually matched voices to stories like it mattered, a concept modern casting directors abandoned somewhere between the third Shrek movie and whatever the hell Chris Pratt is voicing this week. Maya Angelou narrated All the Colors of the Race with her signature grace. Julia Child read Florence and Eric Take the Cake, making baking sound profound.
Miss Lavinia has spent all morning icing the cake with her favorite marshmallow frosting. At last, it's finished.
Whoopi Goldberg also lent her voice because apparently even Oscar nominees wanted in on Reading Rainbow's magic.
I think dreams come true. I'm sitting here talking to y'all. Message, I'm on the television. Who knew?
James Avery, Uncle Phil himself, popped in to voice Berlaz the Bear with the same warmth he brought to every Fresh Prince lecture about responsibility.
You see, I can't force you to do anything you don't want to do. But these are my kids.
The producers didn't just hire famous people and call it a day, they chose narrators whose tone matched the book's spirit, creating mini audiobooks that felt like personal story time instead of promotional content because, back then, artistic integrity occasionally mattered more than Instagram engagement metrics. Some of these readings became so beloved, they ended up in school curriculums. Proof that celebrity involvement could actually enhance education instead of just selling Happy Meal tie-ins. Guess which approach aged better? Number 10. LeVar Burton hosted while starring on Star Trek because overachieving wasn't optional. Starting in 1987, LeVar Burton pulled off something that would make modern actors cry about work-life balance. He simultaneously hosted Reading Rainbow and played Geordi LaForge on Star Trek The Next Generation. That meant wrapping scenes on the Enterprise, catching flights, and showing up the next morning to teach kids about books, all while wearing significantly less futuristic eyewear, though both visors were equally iconic for completely different reasons.
I'm counting on it. Leanne, scan for any air disruption or vortex. Cloak or no cloak will spot it by its turbulence. Worf, how fast can you get a phaser lock?
Fast.
The guy fixing warp cores in space was also convincing children that reading could take them anywhere. Talk about range that would confuse today's algorithm-driven casting directors. The two worlds literally collided in Season 6 The Bionic Bunny Show when Burton took kids behind the scenes of Star Trek The Next Generation and explained how the transporter effect worked.
One of the effects that everybody loves in Star Trek is the transporter effect, beaming in and out. How do you do that?
Well, first it starts, again, with the script where they describe that might be a sparkly pattern or whatever, and then you have to figure out how to make that sparkly pattern.
Teaching the magic behind the magic before every movie had a 3-hour making-of documentary on streaming. Most actors struggled to maintain one successful show. Burton, however, ran 2 cultural institutions simultaneously, taught millions of kids to love reading, and still showed up to conventions in his Starfleet uniform. The man was literally teaching the future while starring in a show about the future. Burton just did the work and made it look effortless, probably because he actually cared about both jobs instead of just cashing checks. Number 9, the funding roller coaster never stopped. Reading Rainbow won over 250 awards across 26 years and taught millions of kids to love reading. It was also perpetually broke. PBS funding meant cobbling together grants and corporate sponsors like Kellogg's, B. Dalton Booksellers, and those iconic Viewers Like You pledge drives that interrupted Saturday mornings with guilt trips disguised as gratitude, because nothing says quality programming like begging for donations between episodes.
Public broadcasting. And by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Here's the problem. Reading Rainbow didn't sell action figures. There were no lunchboxes, no Happy Meal tie-ins, no licensing empire to print money while kids learned. The show's educational, non-commercial model worked beautifully for teaching and terribly for staying afloat. Every few seasons, producers had to scramble for funding just to keep going. Then, the No Child Left Behind Act shifted priorities towards standardized testing and phonics drills because apparently reading comprehension is less important than filling in bubbles correctly.
And that, boys and girls, was the end of the story for Big Al and his gang of nasty rats. Or was it? Oh! Oh!
By 2006, the show couldn't afford to license new books anymore. The magic of storytelling that hooked generations died not because kids stopped watching, but because accountants decided that literacy couldn't compete with phonics drills that fit neatly on standardized tests. Reading Rainbow proved you could make amazing educational TV, it just couldn't prove you could pay for it. Number 8, education policy helped end it because joy doesn't fit on standardized tests. When Reading Rainbow ended, LeVar Burton was clear about what happened. He explained that federal priorities were shifting away from nurturing a love of reading and toward teaching the mechanics of reading. The phonics drills, the measurable skills, the stuff policymakers could track on spreadsheets. In other words, the focus moved from why kids read to how kids read. That shift arrived in full force with the No Child Left Behind Act of 2002. Suddenly, children's programming was expected to provide direct reading instruction. If a show wasn't explicitly teaching phonics, it didn't check the right boxes for federal funding, and guess what Reading Rainbow specialized in?
Now, nobody's really sure, but if there are extraterrestrials, they might be tuning in to Reading Rainbow right now.
Motivation, curiosity, and imagination. All the things that actually turn kids into lifelong readers, and all the things that standardized tests famously ignore. The ready-to-learn grants that had supported the show for years were redirected toward phonics-first programs like Super Y and Between the Lions.
I think we should read it before we decide.
Yeah.
Shows designed to teach mechanics, not inspire a love of stories. PBS had to follow the money, even if it meant sidelining one of the most beloved literacy programs in TV history. The last original episode aired in 2006. By 2009, the reruns faded away. So in the end, Reading Rainbow didn't lose because it wasn't effective. It lost because inspiration couldn't be quantified on a bubble sheet. And somewhere in a conference room, a committee probably applauded themselves while literacy rates continued their slow, fascinating decline. We're at the halfway point and we're going to take a quick pause because if you're enjoying these Reading Rainbow facts, we want you to hit that like button and subscribe. Also, if you could, drop a comment and tell us which Reading Rainbow book you still remember. Now let's get back to the countdown with number 7, the Kickstarter that brought it back, and the birth of Skybrary. In 2014, LeVar Burton did something that would have been unthinkable in the PBS heyday. He asked fans to crowdfund Reading Rainbow's return. The goal was $1 million. It took less than 2 days to raise $5.4 million.
Burton has said that if Reading Rainbow reaches $5 million, which is now guaranteed to do so,
by the campaign's end, over 105,000 backers had pitched in, and Seth MacFarlane, the Family Guy creator, donated $1 million himself, pushing the total past $6 million.
Family Guy creator and Cosmos booster Seth MacFarlane, who has pledged to match every dollar raised after $4 million, up to $1 million in all.
It became one of the most funded education projects in Kickstarter history. The money created Skybrary, a tablet-based digital library with interactive books, animated stories, and virtual field trips. Basically, it was Reading Rainbow for the iPad generation, complete with a subscription model because even nostalgia can't escape monetization, though.
Oh, hi! I'm Austin, your book buddy here at Reading Rainbow. It looks like you're ready.
Hi, I'm LeVar Burton, and I'm here to introduce you to our new Reading Rainbow app.
Hello? LeVar? Hey, over here!
At least this one had educational value instead of just selling you another streaming service you'll forget to cancel. They also built a version for schools with teacher dashboards, proving the concept still worked when given actual resources. It's heartwarming that fans saved the show, but it's depressing that they had to. Number 6, the story contest that turned kids into authors. From 1995 to 2009, Reading Rainbow ran the Young Writers and Illustrators contest, inviting kids in kindergarten through 3rd grade to submit original stories and artwork. Basically, they told 5-year-olds, "You're authors now," and watched what happened. Over 50,000 kids entered in 2007 alone, which is more creative output than most adults manage in a lifetime, but sure.
Well, welcome everybody to the Reading Rainbow Young Writers and Illustrators Contest here at Georgia Public Broadcasting. Are you excited to be here?
Tell us again how participation trophies ruined everything. The prizes evolved with technology. Early winners got home computers and VCRs, while later champions scored laptops, flat-screen TVs, and MP3 players. But here's the genius part. Every single participant received a certificate because the contest wasn't about winning, it was about telling kids their stories mattered.
Tyler stayed on the moon for 3 hours. He discovered many amazing things, but Tyler was now ready to go home. He got on his rocket and hit the big button that said home. He was heading back home.
When Reading Rainbow ended, the contest didn't die. It became the PBS Kids Writers Contest, keeping the tradition alive. Think about it. An entire generation of kids learned that their voices deserved to be heard before they could spell protagonist. Some of them probably became the writers, artists, and creators that we're reading today. That's a legacy you can't measure with test scores. Number 5, the awards hall that proved kids actually wanted quality TV. For a show built on the radical idea that kids would watch television about books, Reading Rainbow didn't just succeed, it dominated. Over 26 years, the series racked up more than 250 awards, including 26 Emmys, which feels almost excessive until you remember PBS was out here producing prestige TV for 7-year-olds. Meanwhile, the networks were busy selling sugary cereal during every commercial break. One of those Emmys even went to LeVar Burton himself for Outstanding Performer in a children's series, proving that yes, the man reading books on your TV after school was delivering award-level acting, not just host energy. Meanwhile, the show picked up a Peabody and countless educational honors, basically becoming the Beyoncé of children's programming.
Of course, there's 1983 when he began his mission to encourage child literacy with the launch of his show, Reading Rainbow. For 26 years, LeVar Burton used television to get kids like me and you excited about books.
But here's the funniest part. Reading Rainbow never acted like a show that knew it was winning trophies. It just kept doing its thing, blending literacy, storytelling, and earnest curiosity, while Hollywood quietly realized the most acclaimed series on TV might be the one teaching kids how to pick out library books. Not bad for a show that didn't even have action figures, tie-in toys, or a single lunchbox to milk. Number 4. The documentary that showed why it still matters. In 2022, directors Bradford Thomason and Brett Whitcomb released Butterfly in the Sky, a documentary about reading Rainbow that made grown adults cry into their streaming devices because apparently nostalgia is the only emotion we have left.
It took me so long to get that name right. Wilford Gordon McDonald Partridge, 9 years old, not a professional actor.
The film featured interviews with LeVar Burton, the show's creators, and Whoopi Goldberg, piecing together how a PBS show about books became more culturally significant than most premium cable dramas with 10 times the budget. It premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival, where critics praised it for being genuinely heartfelt instead of cynically exploiting nostalgia for profit, a shockingly rare achievement in the documentary space.
I think Jumanji was my second review. And when the movie came out, I was like, oh wow! I feel like I had a part in that somehow.
The documentary didn't just celebrate reading Rainbow, it examined why the show mattered then and why we desperately need something like it now. In an era where children's content is algorithm optimized and designed to sell subscriptions, watching footage of Burton genuinely caring about literacy feels almost revolutionary. Number 3, the YouTube reboot for a new generation. In October 2025, Reading Rainbow returned, not on PBS, but on KidZuko. Sony Picture Television's YouTube channel for kids, because everything lives on YouTube now, including your childhood. The new host is Michael Threets, a librarian who built a following spreading library joy online, basically doing LeVar Burton's job but with more TikTok energy and significantly better Wi-Fi. Celebrity narrators like John Legend, Gabrielle Union, and Eben Moss Backrack lend their voices to stories, while animations and virtual library field trips give the format a modern refresh.
Rise and shine, sunshine, is my wake-up call. But just for a moment, my eyes cling to last night's dreams.
Threets even has his own sign-off, Follow the Rainbow, which lacks the philosophical weight of Burton's original but works for an audience whose attention span has been destroyed by algorithm-optimized content. We're not blaming the kids, obviously, we're blaming whoever invented autoplay. The spirit is still there, with gentle encouragement, book discovery, and the belief that reading can take you anywhere. It's just now competing with Minecraft videos and whatever else the algorithm thinks 8-year-olds need to watch. At least someone's still trying to make literacy cool. That alone deserves respect here in the year of 2025. Number 2, LeVar Burton's legacy outshined the show. LeVar Burton wasn't just Reading Rainbow's host, he became the living embodiment of what the show promised. While other childhood celebrities faded into nostalgia circuits or questionable reality TV, Burton kept fighting for literacy like it was his personal mission, because it was.
When I first heard the pitch, the idea for Reading Rainbow, I thought, what a great idea. Let's use the medium of television to steer kids back in the direction of literature and the written word.
Before Reading Rainbow ever put a book in his hands, LeVar Burton was already a cultural force. His very first professional role, Kunta Kinte in Roots, earned him an Emmy nomination, instantly making him one of the most recognizable young actors in America. So, when he walked onto PBS a few years later, he wasn't just a friendly host reading books, he was a critically acclaimed performer, bringing real dramatic weight and credibility to children's television. He spent decades advocating for libraries, fighting book bans, and promoting diverse storytelling.
And after all that hard work, all I have to do is read it. You know, people have always wanted to reach across time and space to tickle your funny bone, tell a tall tale, or even teach you a thing or two.
Proving that literacy is the key to freedom wasn't just a nice slogan, but an actual belief worth defending. During the pandemic, he live-streamed reading to kids stuck at home. His LeVar Burton Reads podcast brings stories to adults who grew up in his neighborhood. The LeVar Burton Foundation continues pushing for accessible education. In 2021, fans petitioned so hard for him to host Jeopardy that he actually got a week-long guest stint. We're still bitter he didn't get the permanent job, but that's a different rant.
What I wanted was to compete. I mean, I wanted the job, right? But then when I didn't get it, it was like, well, okay, well, what's next?
In 2024, President Biden awarded him the National Humanities Medal for his lifelong dedication to literacy. 40 years after telling kids to take a look, it's in a book, Burton's still here, still reading, still advocating, and still proving that one person genuinely caring about education can change generations. Number 1, the theme song was built on a synth, and everyone thought it was Chaka Khan.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high.
That dreamy butterfly in the sky melody that's permanently lodged in your brain came from a Buchla synthesizer, one of those early electronic instruments that made everything sound like the future had arrived early, and honestly, compared to what passes for intro music on YouTube Kids today, it might as well have been from another dimension. The voice behind it was Tina Fabrique, a session singer who absolutely nailed it in one take. But here's the thing, everyone thought it was Chaka Khan. For years, fans insisted the Queen of Funk sang the Reading Rainbow theme, probably because Tina's vocals were that smooth.
Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow.
Now, here's a plot twist for you. Chaka Khan actually did record a version in 2000, 17 years after the original. Her take gave the theme a full-on funk makeover, but by then, Tina's original had already become the version burned into Gen X's collective memory.
Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. Reading rainbow.
The song got remixed a few times over the show's run, including a 1999 version by Johnny Kemp that absolutely nobody remembers.
Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow.
Good luck finding a modern kids show theme that anyone will remember in 40 years. And there you have it. That's 15 weird and wonderful facts about Reading Rainbow. Which fact surprised you the most? Drop it down below in the comments because we read every single one. And by the way, before you leave, be sure to like, subscribe, and hype this video if you enjoyed it. Until next time, take a look, it's in a book, and this is Remember When.